call this meeting to order at 3:01. Thanks for turning my mic on. Okay, so Manager Newton, you have some introductions for us.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to introduce you to our new bylaw enforcement officer, Eric Cocarce. And Eric will be becoming a peace officer with us as soon as his appointment is in. And Eric's been with us since last Wednesday. Eric, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you again, Eric. Eric is a recent graduate of the training center in Lac La Biche, and said he really enjoyed his experience there, and it was. So what do you think of our town so far, Eric?
So far, so great. My mother's from here, so
Oh,
so I get to come and check it out for myself.
oh, perfect. So we always tell everybody the same thing when they start with the town. We wish you good luck, and it's not an easy job you're taking on. We know that there will be some people that'll get a little upset with you, but just remember, not all people in town are exactly like that.
Thank you very much.
Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's good.
And with Eric, we filled our vacant staff position, so we will be catching up on the files that we've been unfortunately neglecting due to staffing, but Eric's got a good handle on things so far, and we're going to be working towards getting things done. On the top of that note, just part of my presentation there with the bylaw, we just had another house removal done that was derelict on 52nd Street, so we're working along with those projects still as well.
We hardly ever say neglecting. We haven't had time to get to. That's the way we look at things.
Understood.
Anyways, anybody have a question for Eric? Well, good luck, and we.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as printed here. Councillor Curtis makes the motion. Is there any additions or deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Next, I'll be looking for adopt the minutes of our last meeting. Councillor Bullock makes the motion. Any errors or omissions within those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, so we're going to move right into some quarterly progress reports, and we're going to start with Manager Gosling from FCSS. Go ahead, Manager Gosling.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Worship, Council. I am always very happy to be able to give a report on all the great things that are happening in our department on behalf of myself and our staff. So I'm going to start, there is always quite a bit that I have to report on, so I'm going to go quickly through this, and if you have any questions or if anybody is interested in learning more about any of these projects, then certainly you can reach out to us in our FCSS department. So just to start with, I'm going to give an update on our 2023-2026 strategic plan. We've completed the majority of our actions and recommendations set by community, board, and council. With the exception of a couple of items that we're going to focus on in 2025 and 2026. And I think most people know that we have been short-staffed in our department. We had a couple of mat leaves, and then somebody who went back to school. So that has delayed us just slightly with some of our projects, but we are hoping to be fully staffed in 2025, have everybody trained up, and continue on with that strat plan and a couple of those items that we also plan to work on anyway in 2025 and beyond. And I mentioned hiring a couple of new staff. So we have Murshad Masomi and Margot is also with the FRN. The two of them just started here in the fall, so we've been working with training them. Mershad is going to be working on our community development projects. He has also been working with Margot on our after-school programs as well, so that's a partnership with the FRN. The FRN is, they have, this fall, all of their programs are full. They've got a waiting list on a lot of them. So she came in this fall and just hit the ground running with a lot of these programs and services, and she seems to be embracing the work and making those connections in the community. Last week, we presented at the FCSS AA conference our community of service. That was the project that we developed in our department. It was just that continuous service with all of the agencies in our community, getting them on that spectrum from early prevention, early intervention, and into crisis. When we presented this, we had some really great feedback from FCSS's. Anybody who was interested in learning a little bit more about this, they had said that they were wanting to work on a project like this in their community, but they just didn't know how to go about it. So giving this document to them really then gives them the ability to take it to their interagency, take it to their agency, or their partners in their community, and work on this particular project also, and develop a document very similar to this. In this quarter, we continue to bring resources to community agencies and our partners. A couple of examples of that is we invited 2-on-1 to present at our interagency meeting. And then we also invited some agencies or service delivery agencies to speak in our community services meetings as well. So that is really who we are. We're the connector. We bring these different resources that are available across the province or nonprofits and invite them to our community to speak on what they do and the services they can provide. When we were at the FCSS conference, we also connected with Service Canada. They're going to be coming out in January doing a community presentation and a clinic to anybody in the community that needs their services, with the exception of a couple of services that they provide. Like, for example, they don't do passports at this particular clinic, but they're coming out to do a clinic on a number of different forms and services that they can provide. So we're excited to be able to offer that coming up in 2025. During this quarter, we also did a couple of awareness and education campaigns. The Truth and Reconciliation, we had an elder come to our community. He was primarily worked with our staff. We did invite board, I want to say council as well, but we invited our board to come out and be a part of the half-day day of learning that we had with an elder. It went over really well. It was really impactful for our staff, and we'll continue to do that. So that's something that we did during that day. We also did some education awareness through our social media. And then Family Violence Prevention Month is this month, so we're doing the campaign, or the social media campaign that was given to us by the province, and rolling that out this month. And also you'll see in a couple of different locations, a few different locations, we have our red silhouette as well, just bringing awareness to family violence, domestic violence in our community. I will also report that we have seen an uptake in our office for individuals looking for family violence and domestic violence supports. I have mentioned the crisis intervention grant that we have out of our office. So we have had some of our trusted agencies access those funds, and even in our office, they've been coming in and accessing those funds. So that's putting somebody up in a hotel, also transportation to get to a shelter. I could say so much about this because there are so many challenges at so many different levels when it comes to these supports. I had a lady last week who was sitting across my desk. She had to, she was phoned 10 different shelters. She had to repeat her story 10 times. And each time she was told that there was no room in shelters. Actually, there was one in Red Deer, and she had to go through a 20 to 30-minute interview before they would even accept her for that. I think there was 2 spots left for one of those spots. And in addition to that, the transportation just to get her to Red Deer if she actually was approved for that spot. So those are some of the challenges we're having. Yes, we are not crisis in our office. However, there is nowhere else for them to go. And a lot of our partners can't support individuals in this situation, so then they end up just getting on the phone and saying, just go to FCSS. Because we know that, they'll take the time to sit down and yes, I know, and I look at you, Tina, I know we're not crisis, but what do you do when you have somebody like that, in your office, desperate to get out of their situation, right? So those are things that we are advocating for right now. I have a meeting next week with the director of AHS in mental health and addictions, just advocating for that crisis worker. So somebody who will actually be in the community, sitting down, having those conversations, listening to those stories, and directing people and taking the time to direct them and get them to a shelter or whatever resources they need. Because I do believe those services exist. It's just navigating and getting people to those services, right? So that's something that I'm going to be working on next week with the director, is just seeing what we can do. A lot of funding is on pause right now in Alberta Health Services and Alberta Recovery under the Alberta Recovery Model, because they are just trying to, I think right now, they've made a lot of commitments around services, access to services for all Albertans, and I don't know right now, but what they're reporting to me is they are trying to find the money to be able to actually, I don't know if they knew how much they had to allocate to that, because 2 conversations this week, 2 different directors saying, we are trying. In fact, one of them had said to me, you were approved, and that was around our community counseling service that I've been saying, oh, I'm just waiting. Heard that we were approved, and it wasn't even hours later saying, you know what, I have to pause it for a moment, and it's just going to be on hold until I can find a little bit more about just making triple sure that we have the funds to be able to send out these contracts. So we are working on it. We're trying to get these services in our community, but we're just waiting for the powers that be to be able to give us the okay that we've got these contracts coming through. So we are working on a couple of regional projects. We've got the poverty simulator that's we're hoping to bring to Vegreville in the spring. That again is with our partners, our partnering communities. So the ones that we worked with on the Connect and Learn last spring. So that would be Toefield, Lamont, Manville, and Viking. So having those FCSSs around the table and working on bringing this poverty simulation event to the community, and really who we're targeting is our local government, local agencies, and also businesses. And it's really about just bringing awareness to poverty and reducing the stigma around poverty, and about really the access to service and the challenges that people in poverty have around access to service. The natural supports and development, we continue to work with community groups on the following. That's the VAST, the Vegreville Adults and Seniors Task Force. Vegreville Cares Coalition, the Pride Committee, and the Men's Shed. And our role is very different depending on what committee we are with. For example, with the Men's Shed, we are the funder. That's who we are, and that's the role we play on that. And some of them we're the coordinator or the convener, it all depends. But those are the roles that we have. We were approved for the Soaring project, and that's that youth-driven project that we had last year. And this year, Murshad will be the lead on that. And we just found out we're approved, so he's going to be bringing community partners to the table. And then from there, we will be engaging youth. And really, this is all about youth coming to the table. They're picking the project and rolling it out. And it has to be rolled out and delivered by June. So they're going to be fast acting on this project. So if you know any youth that are interested in working on community development project, then please send us them our way. And then just to sum up my report, in the later stage prevention, we've got the Child Care Initiative, we're on the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee, and then the Housing and Basic Needs, we also are continue to be on that committee as well. So those are some of the projects that we continue to work on in the committee, and I don't even have time to give you a report on every single one of those, but if you want to know a little bit more as to what we're doing on those different committees, then just let us know or send us a message, or if there's somebody out there in the public that wants to join or know a little bit more about those, then they certainly can reach out to us at FCSS. So, and that is it. How'd I do?
Did very well. Any questions for Julie?
Certainly.
Go right ahead.
I probably would wait, but since you chose to call me out, I'll just start with you. What I would suggest is that when you have these things that you're admittedly aren't in your lane, certainly send them to us as an email, a request, because we're going to have to advocate. Because the problem is, you guys can advocate at a staffing level. We need to still be advocating at a council level, because the more that we do that isn't actually within our role, the more they expect us to do. The more times that we take it on when we've been told repeatedly not to, or we've indicated we don't, they put it on us. They did that to us with Alberta Works. We saw that. It was ridiculous that your staff was put in not only a safety position, but the extra work resource position. But the problem is, another department took their stand and held, we gave. So that would be my suggestion, is that consider sending them that way so that we do the advocacy, which is within our role.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, so
Thank
you are fully staffed right now?
Oh, just,
Still
yeah,
2 positions?
one more position we need to fill.
And are you gonna wait till the mat leave's over, or are you planning on bringing somebody in?
No, it's right now we've got it posted, and hoping to have, I haven't talked to HR yet, but I'm hoping that in the next couple of weeks we can look at some resumes and hopefully be able to fill it soon.
So when it comes to family violence and stuff, does the province not have a role to play with the victim services and stuff like that, or are they just too hard to access for members of our community, or what's the big disconnect here? Why is the province, why are people at your office, our office here, when this is usually a provincial thing? Like, what do you think the biggest problem is?
Well, what is the biggest problem? Well, I think rural community just simply doesn't have the resources that some of our bigger centers has. So there may be some funding, or there's some, like a crisis worker, for example, you may be able to access that in a bigger center, but we just simply don't have that. We have the Crisis Association, and typically they, through the Crisis Intervention Grant, they were able to hire somebody part-time that worked on and addressed some of these situations that are coming through our door right now. So we're starting to see the impact of the Crisis Association no longer having the funds to be able to fund somebody and have them address, these domestic violence and family violence situations. And Victim Services just recently changed their role and the work that they're doing in communities. And I think up until now, just recently, because the changeover just happened in September, that they just learned just recently what their role is. And I believe that it is, it has to be related to a criminal offense. But that's something that I have to just clarify, because that's just recently they were told what the service what's under their mandate and what qualifies as the service that they can provide and what they can't. Because we did learn that if it hasn't been reported as a crime, that they could not deliver that service to that individual.
Okay, so family violence, domestic violence, if it's not reported as a crime, Victim Services is not their lane? Is that what you think?
That is my understanding, and that's what I was told. Now, if that has changed, then I will get clarification on that, but that is my understanding, that was really what a lot of programs were advocating for, or communities were advocating for, was that there's a lot of crisis situations that do not fall in that area. For example, a lot of individuals, I won't just say women, but individuals will not report domestic violence. They will just seek out help. They just want help. They just want to leave. So if it's not reported or to the RCMP, or the RCMP don't lay charges, or then it doesn't really fall under that.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just to that point, does the Crisis Association operate anymore as a volunteer group? I feel like they
Yes.
don't, or do they?
They have an AGM next week, so FCSS will be attending to find a little bit more about where they're at and whether they're going to continue, because they no longer have the crisis intervention grant, nor are they overseeing victim services any longer. So the partnership is no longer there.
Yeah, because I know, like, to that point, that used to be the group that if somebody arrived here with no money on a weekend and they had no place to stay because we don't have a shelter or anything like that, they would call victim service, or not victim services, sorry, Crisis Association to assist in a crisis. That's what they were there for, and we don't have that anymore.
That's where we refer to as well.
Okay, thank you.
Well, maybe we should get a hold of our MLA and get a little clarity on this situation. If there is Albertans in distress through domestic family violence and there's no charges laid, what are their options? I mean, it is still a provincial responsibility. It's not the town of Vegreville's responsibility. And I know you guys are gonna do whatever you think you have to do at the moment, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But if this is just for the province to walk away from a responsibility because that person didn't file charges, I don't think that's the role of what Victim Services was ever meant to be.
Yeah, I know that during my meeting that I had with my contract specialist with Alberta Health Services, they said that there is more money coming and more programs coming for domestic and family violence. It's coming, but I just can't speak to it because that's all she said. Under the new model, there was more money coming. And so I would invite any one of you, if you would like to join me for that meeting next week, Tina, you had just mentioned, to advocate, then by all means, I would welcome anybody who wants to join.
Who else is on FCSS? Can either one of you guys make that meeting?
You gotta let me know when it is and we'll see what I can do.
Okay,
Yeah, we gotta have a voice here. I mean, just because things are changing, we just can't have those holes in the system.
it's a huge gap, you're right.
It's-
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
Yep.
And again, just because there's no charges laid, doesn't mean the province is now without responsibility. So, I mean, that's all wrong. And again, I know there's a lot of changes that are happening in healthcare in a way that everything is being structured in the 4 different pillars or departments that they're having now. But still, I mean, hopefully one of our counselors can go to that meeting and get a little more information, and we'll need to talk to our MLA, and we need to talk to the government, because this is not the role of what your office should be doing. There should be somebody here in Vegreville representing this area.
And that's why we are advocating so that we can take that strain off, not just FCSS in Vegreville, but strain on FCSSs. If you, like, we're not the only ones across the province that have these individuals kind of, like, when we go to our conference, this is what a lot of us are, we're all sharing in these same challenges, right? Especially in our rural communities. This is one of our biggest challenges, is access to service. And that is, if anything, our municipal councils, our MLAs is really about advocating for that access to service in our rural communities. So.
We certainly understand there's someone standing at your door, and there's no other recourse for them to
Right.
take. I mean, we can't turn those people away. We all understand that. But again, this is not something that the government can just turn their back on while they're figuring out how much money they can put into it. There's things that you can stop doing, but this is something that you can't stop doing, so. Any more questions? Well, we thank you very much, Manager Gosling.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up, Manager Newton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple progress reports here on the last 2 projects that we're waiting for 2024. One of them being our airbag system. Our airbag system has been received, and it's in working order, except one piece that needs to be replaced. Luckily, it's still under warranty, and that'll be rectified as soon as possible with the manufacturer. We did receive training in the airbag system, and the department's really happy with the new equipment, and they'll be putting it to good use when the time comes.
Go right ahead, Councillor Bullock.
I see here that it also says in there that determining additional size is needed and will be using the operating budget?
That's correct.
Why?
The kit came with smaller size bags. We determined that it'd probably be beneficial if we had one additional size in the diameter for the airbag. So once we received that, it's the kit itself was more expensive than the one bag. So we'll just be using that operational budget to replace that one bag, or adding to that one bag.
So what's the additional cost gonna be?
Less than $2,000.
Okay,
Okay, keep going.
Thank you, Your Worship. The last piece of the progress report is our Alberta First Responders Communication System. It's still on track with the manufacturer. Unfortunately, there's just a bit of a delay on getting the radios all in at once. The company that we are using has received some of the radios, but not all the radios. It's better to program them all at once, get them all here at once they're coming. So they don't have a time frame. They said hopefully within the next month, but it'll be definitely hopefully before the new year. We did, however, though, with the agreements that we've received from our partners in the area, we've reprogrammed our 2 current AFRAX radios for our CPO program, and we're in the middle of testing those right now. So far, it's been positive with those new aspects, and now we can talk to our contracts, fire departments as well as neighboring peace officers if needed.
So we ordered the new radios, they gave us a few, and the rest are on back order.
They're on back order. They have them at the shop, but the 2 radios that we already had for the CPO program have been reprogrammed with the new specifications that we laid out in the last order.
Go right ahead.
I'm just wondering, and you probably did tell us this before, I just can't remember. With the cost that's in there, was that just the radio equipment cost? Like, was there an additional like licensing fee, or, you know, I'm thinking kind of like a telephone bill. Is there a monthly fee with that? And if so, is it included?
Yeah, so there is no monthly fee with any of the radio, with those radios. The licensing is still part of our current licensing. It's an annual license that we wouldn't have to change in aspects of anything in that portion. It works on a new network, and every first responder has access to it if we go through the process. The only thing we're paying for on top of the radios is the programming fees and the tech support for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? Okay. Next, we're gonna look at the OH&S, and that's you again, Manager Newton.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is OH&S Policy 5002, Working Alone. This is just more of a housekeeping policy and the update. So the Town of Vegreville's OH&S Policy 5002 was scheduled for review. A few minor changes included the updating of the Department for Community Services to the new Elite Foreign Protective Services, adding Section 1.0 for the reason of the policy, and updating our policy format. Town of Vegreville already has access to a working alone check-in system that's provided by Yellowhead County. Currently, the fire department and the peace officers are on that program. As per the policy, department managers who have employees who work alone are responsible for developing a working alone safety plan, and the senior management team has been tasked with reviewing, updating, and submitting these procedures to myself in the new year. There's no additional costs associated with this policy. The Town of Vegreville already contracts, again, Yellowhead Services, and it's no additional cost. That was in the original contract when we signed up. The updated policy shared on the Town of Vegreville's, will be shared on the Town of Vegreville's website, and managers and directors will be expected to communicate the updated policy to our employees and work together to review the updated and submitted the working alone procedures. Your options today, Your Worship, are Town Council may accept or propose amendments, working alone policy, and accepted the updated policy at the next council meeting, or Town Council may recommend further amendments to the policy as discussed today, or at the next December 3rd Legislative Services meeting, or Town Council may adopt to make no changes to the current policy. Administration will update the review and date to be passed at the next council meeting.
All right. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councilor Curtis.
Thank you. I'm just looking into section 5.7. Supervisors shall provide employees and contractors with appropriate training. What type of training do we have involved with this? Just wondering what kind of cost it is to us to provide it to contractors.
No associated costs to provide it to contractors, as it would be advise them of what our policy is. So if we need to set up, you know, if they're working on our sites, for example, if we have somebody here after hours, they need to check in with somebody. If we have to use our current contractor for working alone, it'd be no cost to the town whatsoever. It'd just be, this is the person's name, this is their ID number, they're gonna phone in every hour or wherever time frame that they do and go from there. It'll be the same as our employee as well.
Thank you.
So just so I get this straight, if we have a contract, it's service in town, or we have, let's say, in the middle of the night, we have a rooftop that's out, and if a local contractor, local business sends an employee down here, they'll have to adhere to this policy if they're working alone on the roof, and their boss will have to phone them and check in on them, or would that be our responsibility?
Our responsibility would to ensure that the contractor is informed of our policy. So if they were here by themselves, I wouldn't see why a town employee wouldn't be here with them in that aspect of things. But it's just an example. If the roof leaks and somebody sent it out, either they have their own working alone policy or they would adhere to ours. As long as somebody's keeping track of that person, they know what the steps would be.
So typically, this is not, when we have an outside company, a local company, a contracted service come to town, do we typically sit down and go through our employee manuals like this or our procedures and stuff? Is this something that we do and they sign off on it?
We may not go through the policy word for word, but they are aware we have these policies and they are aware of our procedures for following them. For example, the working alone. If they are working alone and their company doesn't have set procedures for them to do, they will be given the number to Yellowhead County and they will be required to phone in at the set time that that department has determined is the appropriate time frame. So they will be made to follow our policies if they don't have any existing. But the majority of the companies, usually if they're working at, like on HVAC and stuff like that, A, they don't come alone, and B, those companies tend to have a lot of their own safety policies already in place that they follow.
Good, go ahead.
I obviously think that's, something we would want either us or them to have some kind of policy. I'm just wondering on one just legal or maybe logistical type of thing. When we alert them of that or ask them, do we make them sign that they have told? I'm just thinking of a case of once you put it in writing saying that you'll have ours or theirs, then if something happened that they didn't have, did we have a responsibility to verify if we said they had to have? So I'm just wondering if we have that in place where they have to sign off and say, I verify that we have, or something where we've got proof that they've stated it, whether they've done it or not.
That's under our contractor, our hiring contractor policy. There's a form attached that they have to fill out, whether it be annually if they are somebody that we call on regularly, or at the beginning of a job, that policy's gone through and on there's the checklist of our different policies, whether they've been discussed with them. So yes, there is a record and documentation that we've reviewed all this with them.
Thank you.
Good. Everybody feel good with the policy to take it to Monday's meeting? Okay, we'll see it there. Thank you very much, Manager Newton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council.
Next up, Manager Kuznick.
All right, we'll fly through this pretty quick. During November's budget meeting, you guys asked for some information on a social center and what our bookings were looking like, so that is before you. You may see a little bit of revenue difference in 2024. That's because we haven't received all the money or haven't got the rest of the month yet, so it'll be closer to 46,000.
I was definitely looking at it.
At one time, we never really let the social center go even for nonprofits without having a charge, correct?
That is correct. That was one of the reasons why that community support policy was brought in, that they could, there was a fund set aside that nonprofits could write in and ask for. It was basically kind of a budgeted line for items like the social center or whatever, if council felt that it was appropriate that it could go without a fee, and the fee would actually come out of that budgeted line. But for the most part, the social center is not used for free.
That budget is 5,000.
Sorry, and that's a 5,000 annual budget line.
Okay, yeah, well, numbers are down. Go ahead.
So we have talked about trying to increase revenue, and I wonder if this is maybe something that is maybe part of a bigger discussion about, things have changed. We talked about this last time in terms of how people approach events like weddings, et cetera. But our population has increased. Sorry. So I wonder if this is something that we want to take a look at. We don't necessarily market. We were just talking about this at the Homestead Lodge too, like trying to, assuming that everybody knows everything that we're doing is one thing. The other thing that I was reminded that a lot of our residents do not use social media and they do not listen to the radio, so we still need to use traditional means of communicating with them. So two parts to that. maybe under your watch, this has not been a focus, but there was a time many of us on this panel or on this group, we know that there were no weekends available. People would plan their weddings 2-3 years in advance. But I wonder if this is something that we need to talk about a little bit and encourage people to use it. I appreciate that pickleball is using it during the day. I appreciate that the stage has been changed over the years, so it's more useful for local dance groups to be able to use it. But maybe we need to, again, not only look at how we make that facility more attractive, but also market it and let people know.
Yeah, I think those go hand in hand. If we're gonna upgrade the facility, we need to put money aside for marketing and pushing it out there so people know what we have and what's available.
Councillor Curtis?
Thank you. And how about the booking? Is there an option for online booking like we have at the campground? Is that pushed out there that people know they can get ahead of the game and look through the calendar and see what dates are available?
That's not out with our Intelli at the moment, but we have been looking into that, and that system can do all that. It's just a matter of time in the new year of getting our staff trained and upgrading the system a bit, and it'll all be on there. From our bookings to our swims to our booking lessons, all that stuff will be online, linked up to our web page. And people should be able to pay and book right then and there.
Councillor Lemko?
Yeah, I think as a council, we have to bear in mind that social center is rented out for how many seats. Weddings today, at the cost of caterers, the cost of weddings, and all the people aren't having big weddings anymore. We can see the numbers down because nobody wants to rent a hall that big for a 40-person wedding.
I would agree with you. They're
It's
all a lot more intimate, smaller
Yeah.
sizes now.
And that's the challenge we face is the weddings now are, the old Ukrainian weddings with 700 people just don't
Two
happen anymore.
settings.
Yeah. That's the reality of today.
For those that weren't here for the budget meeting, we had a good conversation, and we know that the social center needs some TLC. So we've set aside $50,000 in this year's budget to start recognizing just some simple things need to be done. We know that the kitchen and replacing some of the stuff that goes missing there is a big help, and Manager Kuzmic is going to be hiring someone to manage the social center contracted service. So I think that once we get back on track a bit here, and there's been some negativity in the past regarding the social center, and we need to, the buck stops here at this council. If we're gonna do something to bring it back, advertising will be good, but we need to make it a good experience for someone to use the facility, so, and that's what our role is here, so.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Do we ever, I know that we don't want to be going into people's private events, but I'm just wondering, have we ever gone through and like taken some photos or saw about getting photos of different sizes of events? Because just to Councillor Lemko's point, weddings are becoming smaller. They're not the same. And I have been at full events in the social center that there's tables from end to end. But recently, even just last fall, I went to a more intimate wedding there where they had put up the wall. And actually, it's quite amazing how different they can make the space look. So, if that's something we try and get from some past events of what the place can look like, because that's a great way to market things, to show some past events. And sometimes you're helping yourself with some of the way they've decorated and dealt with, but I do know that it actually makes quite a nice space when you seal that area off.
Yeah, it would be good if they give us permission to take some of the pictures in there for sure. We haven't done that, but that's something to definitely look at with a media push, so.
Well, when you get this position filled, I think that position will be part of the marketing. So again, anytime that the social center, how it's arranged or what it looks like, we should always be taking some pictures. It's our facility, and having them out there. This is what it looks like at this size. And
Nope, that's perfect.
any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, Manager Kuzmic, for coming in with that today. Next up, Director Saskew, Asset Retirement Obligation Policy.
Well, just
Here we
Should
go.
get some flaming batons. It's not quite as exciting as the social center.
Mine's upside down.
Mine is too.
This thing that goes like that, hit that?
In light of going paperless, I had to steal this from Sandra, her paper copy, because I'm like, I can't read upside down. So this is policy FIN 60XX, asset retirement obligation. And the proposal here is to approve this policy. So existing laws and regulations require public sector entities to take specific actions to retire certain tangible capital assets at the end of their useful lives. This includes activities such as the removal of asbestos and retirement of landfills. Other obligations to retire tangible capital assets may arise from contracts or court judgments or even lease agreements. So an example would be our public works building that's on Crown land right now, so to say. Policy FIN 60XX establishes formal guidelines for the accounting treatment for asset retirement obligations so that users of the financial report can discern information about these assets and their end-of-life obligations. This is very long-winded saying we are required to do this with the new asset retirement obligations set forth by CPA Canada, and we will not get a green check mark on our audit as unqualified if we don't adopt this policy and make the related changes. So there are financial implications to adopting this policy. This policy will be adopted, modified retrospectively. So that results in me restating prior year financials with the proper liability in place, like using the accounting treatment that we're adopting going forward. So I have to redo last year's for the changes and then update 2024's to have the similar changes and then also have a note disclosure on the restatement. The 2025 to 2027 operating budget has been updated to include the required accretion expenditures as a result of the adoption of this policy. Accounting terms, we have to set up an asset and a liability. The asset is a tangible capital asset, so we'll see it in our TCA going forward. That asset we amortize over the years of the basis of the service, so that goes below the line. So we do not have to budget for those costs. The amortization we do not have to budget for, so our net budget is a negative $3 million because of amortization. But there's also a liability, and the liability we have to build up so like the liability today to close up the landfill, let's say it's $10. Well, 20 years from now, $10 is no longer $10, it's now $100. So every year we have to book the change in value, and that actually is above the line. So we have to budget for those expenditures, similar to how we have been accounting for our landfill to date. Long story short, about $40,000 is what is going to have to be built into this budget. And I will update you with my budget update. We have the prior landfill reserve that we made when we did the environmental disclosure 6 years ago. So we do have that landfill reserve that's at $1 million. We'll use the $40,000 to cover that. And then going forward, once it's vetted by the auditors, we'll budget it appropriately in our financials going forward. So communication is senior management and the town's external auditors will be notified of the adoption of this policy. And the options are that town council review it and provide recommendations for changes to admin. Unfortunately, we can't just not adopt it. Or town council review and approve the recommendations to bring it to the next council meeting for adoption. So this policy, as a side note, was provided by John, the engineer that did our asset retirement study for us. So, and it has been adopted to town formatting.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
I was reading through the meeting minutes and stuff like that. I'm just seeing that from what John has been saying, that hazard abatements, they want to be carried out within the next year in a number of these properties?
Yeah, so basically he is using his professional judgment and just like, for example, another arena that has been remediated that was about the same year, this is what was in it for dollar value of asbestos and dollar value of that. So you can do hazard studies, pardon me, that can give you a better indication of cost. So as a result of doing those hazard studies on the recommended ones that he had shown there, we could probably either reduce or have to increase our liability based on these studies. So I was gonna put that as a long-term project, moving into 2026 and onwards. So 2025, our goal is to get this adopted, get the accounting treatment correct, and then move forward into the budget year to make sure, because our audit won't be passed until end of April. So then that gives us summer to plan and see where we can get these hazard studies and build them into 2026 budget if need be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we've done our assessment
Correct.
of all of our facilities. So next year, less what we've already done, we don't see anything else coming into the assessment.
That is correct.
Unless we buy more facilities.
That is correct. So the hazard study would be done on an existing facility. So right now, he's recommending the arena, the pool, and I think maybe the multiplex. But those are ones that, like, we can update our policy. So maybe our multiplex was built right around the time that they stopped using asbestos tiles, and maybe we had a contractor that didn't use asbestos tiles. So instead of, if you go into the nitty-gritty of each of his details as to how he calculated it, our liability could go down because we actually have concrete proof that our tiles don't have asbestos in them. So right now, he's using best practices, like on average, a building built in 1990 has this, this, and this, and kind of on the high end of things, right? Just to be safe. So likely, he said hazard studies would likely make our liability go down. But my goal for this year is to get this passed and in and accounted for properly, and then have the auditors vet it, and then move forward into looking at potential hazard studies in the new year, because I don't even know what those would cost. Yeah, I think they're expensive. And like with our recreation feasibility studies and everything going on, like I think going in and doing a hazard study on a building that might be changing drastically in the coming years, like a big renovation would actually take away this liability, because then if you replace all the tiles and everything, you're paying in today's dollars to remediate it. So at this point in time, given council's future of recreation and some of our changes to our facilities that we're possibly going to do, it makes sense to just not quite do those quite yet.
So for this coming year, you feel $40,000 is in the budget will cover what the report says that should be done?
Oh, the restatement is like in $1 million range, but it comes out of surplus. The 40,000 is actually the true expense of the increase in the liability on like the social center, the arena, the multiplex, so.
It's not a study or anything, that would just be.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just, it's accounting math.
yeah, it's the retirement part of the asset. Like, we need to accrue some money on this side.
Yeah. And it's increasing the liability for the future cost. So if it costs us $100,000 today to remediate it, each year we have to increase based on the time value of money. So not a huge bottom line cost, but still a bit annoying to have to do all this extra accounting.
So when this study goes forward, you believe our auditors will give us an unqualified?
I'm hoping so. I will be doing the accounting treatment for this and the restatement. I'm hoping to have it ready for our December 5th interim audit with Wild & Company. So I am gonna hopefully have a lot of spreadsheets available for them, and they can possibly vet the ARO before even year-end audit, so.
Go right ahead.
I don't want to hold you to any kind of numbers. I'm just thinking for the next part of it, because obviously the issue that I had with this one originally is no level has actually claimed that they require this. The municipal
Well, the
government acts as
professional
no.
accounting people said that.
Of course they would. But at this point, I still feel like we do have some responsibility, because they actually don't get to set regulations, right? I mean, they set their regulations as to what they're willing to give, but there's still one level of government somewhere that actually says, yes, we require this qualifier, we don't. Like, so they can't all, and this isn't the accountants, I'm saying at this point, they're doing what they have to do. But at some level of government, we have to be able to ask that question of, is it your requirement? If it is, and the reason what I'm thinking next is, if we knew that there's 30 buildings and they identified the top 4, I certainly don't want any major money spent figuring this out, but if we could even come up with some guesstimates that are based on something that maybe even the manager, because may have is of what, say, that study would cost, I think that it might be worthy to go to these levels of provincial and federal government and advocate for some additional granting for these studies. Because if they're going to say, unless they're going to come out and own it and say, you're not required to do it, but right now, we're being told we're required to do it, and we're needing to tax our residents, tax dollars to put away to deal with this future liability. But if there's gonna be these other requirements that have been placed by them, maybe they need to make some grant dollars available like they did with recreation feasibilities or whatnot. So I just think I'm not suggesting we need to do this right now because it's obviously budget time, but if we can maybe put some thought into how we could come up with some advocacy that goes to one of the levels and says, hey, if you're going to hold behind the yes, you want qualified, and you are not going to sit down and say, no, we don't require you guys to do this, then you need to put some money in there. And because this could be, like from the look that you guys got, I have a feeling you're sort of suggesting each one is quite expensive. Okay, so just something I want to keep on the radar, because, I mean, I'm thinking if we had 4 or 5 of these things, we're talking like tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Hundreds.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is we might be told $400,000 in studies. Right? So it just, that's just the scare
We
thought.
just gotta keep up with the depreciation side.
That's correct. Well, and then like you
We're
said,
good.
we are in the middle of a recreation feasibility study, so then if we do, not necessarily a remediation, but a renovation of the arena right now and remediate any of the existing asbestos, we can get rid of the future liability because we've replaced the ceiling tiles and the flooring and everything else. So there's like that side of it too, with like the recreation kind of being up in the air as to what our future of all those buildings are. Like, I don't know if I would do a study on that at this point in time when we're either looking at renovations or changing in the next 10 years. So as long as our auditors
Money in, money out right now. I mean, it's going to, we're showing it in the budget, but it's not money that's being spent.
No, yeah, it's booking a liability. And we are doing that already for the landfill. So the landfill, we do have a accretion expense in there. It's $60,000 up from the 40 of the prior year. So that 60 may cover a lot of this other cost too. I have to go and restate the whole landfill to comply with this new policy with the liability and the asset setup.
But is the intention that you still, I thought you meant that you were putting it in a line item that we're actually collecting taxes?
We are collecting taxes on one line item on the landfill reclamation, because so
Would
we,
with this as well in future years? Or
Yes.
not this year, though?
not this year, I'm gonna pull it from the landfill reserve that got set up, which no longer is required.
Right.
So we have a landfill reserve in approximately, and it's in excess of $1 million. So that is no longer required with this new accounting treatment. So then I can use those funds to cover it for this year. And then once the auditors have it vetted and we can do the calculation and build it into the budget so that everybody is understanding exactly what it costs, then if that's okay with council for this year.
Okay, so everybody here that understands this 100%, put your hand up. But it's gonna be coming to Monday's meeting. Oh, go ahead, Councilor Bullock,
I understand it'll cost us money in the long run.
eventually. But to go a few years without unqualified, what's the word I'm looking for?
Audit opinion.
Audit. And then it might get flagged by municipal affairs. Right now, municipal affairs is saying, well, we don't really care, it's not our deal, but it may be their deal, and then we get a bad report, so.
They could also start withholding grant funds.
Okay, well, they haven't said that yet, but there's nothing wrong with being,
In the past, municipalities that don't have qualified audit reports often start getting more stringent grant requirements put on them, but this is a slight difference.
but they still haven't said that the only reason that we have qualified is because our auditors are saying, because their professional association says we need to have this asset retirement.
That is correct. It's a loop that we don't know where it actually started from, so unfortunately.
Well, I hope the carpenter people don't get together and make us do a bunch of stuff. Professional carpenters of the world.
All those carpenter people.
Okay, well, that's coming to Monday's meeting. Does anybody want any changes? They want to read through it again, but it will be at Monday's
Darn, I won't
council.
be there, otherwise I was gonna vote against it, but that's okay.
You can't.
I I'm not gonna be there. I can't.
Okay, well, maybe somebody will for you.
Okay, let's record that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Director. Next up is the unoccupied and derelict property bylaws.
Yes. Oh, shoot, where did I go? Oh, right here. I have too many tabs open. Okay, so I have here a memorandum to council talking about the unoccupied and derelict property bylaw. So the attached unoccupied and derelict property bylaws, so that's item 2 and 3, outline the requirements for property to be deemed unoccupied or derelict. The first draft provided to you, so that's an item 2, was provided to the town by our assessor. The first draft of the bylaw was adopted to the town, presented to the town format without much change. It was presented to council in September. The second draft, which is item number 3, has been compiled after review of several other bylaws and direction from council at the previous ledge meeting. This is a starting point for the bylaw and is presented to council today as information. So please review, email myself or the CAO with questions or concerns. This will come to another legislative meeting prior to being presented at a council meeting for first reading. And then once first reading has occurred, public consultation will be attained. So this is us giving it to you, so you have 2 weeks before it's even like on the budget for, or on the ledge meeting for like specific instructions, because it's always like hard to give it to you the day before. So this is giving you lots of time to read. Key items to note. So draft 1, which is attachment 2, this bylaw encourages, I have a spelling error, the development or revitalization of unoccupied and derelict residential and non-residential properties in the town for the general benefit of the municipality. This bylaw allows for taxation of unoccupied and derelict property at a rate of 4 times the mill rate. So this is similar to what the town of Viking has also presented to its members, and I don't know if they've actually shown a bylaw. They're talking about 4 times the mill rate, and they want input from their citizens. This bylaw will result in a lower overall mill rate for the remainder of the properties that are not considered unoccupied or derelict, as the unoccupied and derelict properties would account for more tax dollars than they have in the past. And this bylaw would be introduced at the same time as, it could be introduced at the same time as like an infill tax incentive to promote development. Draft 2, this bylaw has been adapted to be able to apply specific residential and non-residential districts. So these can be reviewed in the attached land use district map, which is attachment 4. This bylaw has further definitions than what was presented in draft 1, and this bylaw has a blank rate when it comes to the multiplying factor. In review of other municipalities, the bylaw for the multiplying factor has been as low as 1.25 and as high as 4. So this is giving council some input into making their own factor. So right now, there's no current financial implications of this bylaw. The taxation rate of Class 1 and Class 2 will be taken into account when calculating the 2025 mill rate. The additional tax on unoccupied and derelict property will allow for a lower mill rate on the remaining property. So for example, in draft 2, in residential, we're looking at unoccupied and derelict. We could update it so that we're only looking at like derelict residential right now and not including just vacant land. There's also a caveat in excluded properties where it says if somebody has a fenced in second property that like maybe has an accessory building or garage, it's part, like there's shrubs and it's part of their main property, that they are also exempt from the 4 times the tax because they've made 2 tax rolls, so to say, their own. So there's exclusions and other things within that bylaw that makes it a little bit easier to read and more clear on who is actually getting taxed at those higher rates. So for example, I think right now we have R1 and R2. So R3 and R4 are exempt from this bylaw. Like I use this as discussion points. So this is not what I'm suggesting council should do. I was just putting it in a way so that you could see that you could exclude specific commercial districts or you could exclude specific residential districts and just target one area if there's an issue with like highway commercial only. You can make it so that it only applies to highway commercial and not the rest of the.
Sort of like on highway commercial, where all of our brownfield lots are.
That's correct. And highway commercial, for the most part, I think most of those empty lots are brownfield lots.
Okay, so we don't need to go through each one of these today. We'll have a chance to read it. We're gonna have more discussion at the next ledge meeting, and then the council meeting after that, we'll probably have first reading on this after we make some changes to what we feel. And then we'll go to the public with the
and feel free to email us. We can make sure that we have the right or a more detailed draft ready to go for the next ledge meeting where there's some.
Okay, everybody good with that? Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think I have one more.
I thought this one, oh, yes, operating budget.
My operating budget update. So this is, I have great news. Our operating budget is now at balanced in the black with a small surplus of $783. So the budget meeting held on November 12th of 2024, I presented to you a deficit of $164,505. So below is a summary of the changes made to the budget that was originally presented. So adjustment of COLA to 2.5%. This COLA applies to all staff on the wage grid, including full-time, part-time, casual, and summer students. The only staff who are not subject to a COLA are those who are on a contract, and a good example of this would be the CAO. So council was involved with the CAO's contract, so they should be familiar with the terms of those reference. Firefighter wages have also been updated to include a 2.5% COLA to their wage rates. That was not included in the budget that was originally presented to you. My revenue account for municipal services has been increased from $60,000 to $120,000 to accommodate the transfer from fleet reserve for the 2 half tons that are in 2025. So originally it was 60, and then council had gone with the intention to replace 2 vehicles for next year. And that's the next line item. So capital expenditures have increased from $60,000 to $120,000 to accommodate the purchase of 2 half tons. So that's for municipal services and 1 for parks in 2025. A $50,000 expense has been added to the social center replacement projects for rehabilitation of the social center, as we had discussed in the meeting. $50,000 transfer from reserve, so that's revenue, has been added to the social center to fund the expenditures added. We have the $11,416 expense in community services for STARS has been removed after discussions with council on the 12th. $20,000 has been added as a transfer from general reserve and community services to fund the potential Crossroads Regional Economic Development Initiative costs. As a reminder, that initiative, those costs, that's like worst case scenario. So there's other grants and funding that different funding models that come into play. So rather than taxing ratepayers for something that may or may not occur, it has been just put as coming from general reserve. Library operations have been updated to have a net cost of $256,000, a reduction of $14,000 from their presented ask of $270,000. I have also sent an email to the library board advising them of council's change to funding models. So they should be aware of that. I will follow up this week. I believe they have a meeting tonight, actually, or tomorrow. $10,000 has been removed from municipal services for the purchase of the AC machine. This initiative has been moved to 2026. Thank you to Director Lefebvre for saying that they could push this 1 more year. If they have to recharge any of these specific air conditioning next year, they will just outsource it to local talent. $25,000, has been removed from the landfill for fence replacement. This initiative has been added to 2026. Director Lefebvre also said this was not a high needs project for 2025. We do have an existing fence, so we're meeting all regulations. This is an improvement to it to help with the garbage going into neighboring fields. Replacement projects, ball diamond fencing, $15,000, and spectator bleachers, $10,000, have been removed from 2025 and added to 2026. So that's my thank you to Manager Kuzmic for helping me balance the budget as well. So these were all initiatives that between us at senior management we felt could be pushed 1 more year without affecting our level of service. And then the event center revenue has increased $11,000 to accommodate for minimum expected revenues for rental in 2025. And as I had noted prior, the ARO $40,000 I will put in as expense and bring in from the landfill reclamation reserve. And that is all the changes.
Okay, any comments?
Okay, sure.
Go ahead, Cal.
One's a comment, one's a question. So with the second last one with the at the ball diamond, I understand completely with why the decisions were there. Although I do know the will of council was discussion on, making the ball diamond better and the opportunities that were there. I understand that some of the things we went after with some potential lightning with partners and stuff didn't happen, but while I understand the need to take it out, if we can watch for any out of the box grants or anything that might come up, I would still really like to see more improvements if anything became available. And you never know, given that we're practically on the edge of a waterway. I don't know, maybe there'll be some kind of ecosystem grant or something, but if something comes, I still really would love to see that. And then the second question was more to Director Sasky. Of course, that meeting is tomorrow night. And while the budget is not passed, because we have spoken about some of the changes in funding 2 years in a row, is it, I guess, because I'm sure I will be asked somewhat, is it correct to then say, as per budget discussions or that we expect that to be the outcome? Because I'm sure they will ask, and it has been public discussion twice.
Yeah, I would say it's like the will of council or consensus of council right now.
At this time
that,
is,
At
okay.
this time, I believe we all went through, and I think for the most part, it was consensus that 256 is where you would be comfortable standing.
Perfect. I just kind of wanted to know what I could or not, because it wasn't officially.
And I think, like, we said it on live, right? Like, they could pull.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, if everybody's good with this, we will see a motion to pass the budget at the next council meeting?
That is correct. I will, the one other schedules that I have to do up are the formal budget template with the nice title page. So it's very similar to the pages that we've already sent out at the last budget meeting, but that'll be the formal one. It'll be ready as part of an attachment for the next council meeting. And that is what we post on our website for the public to view as well. So that should be available to you all on Friday in your packages.
Okay, so I don't want someone on Thursday to send something that the Director Saskew saying, well, you know what, I don't agree with this. And then, so if there's anything that anybody feels about those were, I know a couple missed the last budget meeting, and I told you a couple of the changes that were made. But this is where we're at to get this thing done, so.
And then
Okay, well,
I will just, one more comment. This leads us into the next item with CAO Ling is the fees and charges bylaw. There has been updates to the recreation fees and charges. I haven't increased income because in the past we've been just short of missing our income targets. So I think it's a little bit more conservative just to leave revenues as is with some of the proposed increased fees at this time. So there may be a small surplus from that next year, but I'm hoping that we actually meet our income targets in the new year across all the facilities with the changes that is going to be proposed by Sandra.
yeah, so any changes that would really affect this budget are actually next fall.
That's correct. So we had spoken about, like with the arena fees and whatnot, that we're not going to enact that for this current season. It'd be for next September. And as I had noted, we've been very close at meeting some of our goals for revenue in those facilities, but a lot in the last few years we've been short a little bit. So I think with those increases, we'll be hitting our target for 2025. And then can increase for 2026 during budget deliberations. And as well, any of the initiatives related to Director Lefebvre, he did go over those and had the fees and charges in front of us when we went through our budget deliberations. So his increases have all been built into the budget.
And again, it's still a guesstimate too, right?
It is, yeah.
Know how many times we're gonna be able to apply those fees.
That is correct.
Okay, Joe, just so those council, members of council word here. So we were looking at a 2.5% COLA and a 2.5% tax increase. Okay. Thank you very much. Next, CAO Ling.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. And as Director Saskew said, next up is the draft 2025 fees and charges bylaw. And the Town of Vegreville's fees and charges bylaw is reviewed and revised annually to reflect the changes made to the town budget and needs of organization and facilities. The draft 2025 fees and charges bylaw is being presented to council for discussion. And while this says it will be brought back for all three readings at the November 25th council meeting, we can forego that and you guys can have time to review it. It can go to the December 3rd Legislative Committee for a final review and then be passed on December 9th at that council meeting if council wishes. And that will give you an opportunity to actually go through it. Administration is recommending the following revisions to the fees and charges bylaw for 2025. So Schedule B, airport fees and charges. All fees and charges have been increased by 3%.
So in reality, what does that look like? Does it look like $800?
No,
A little more than that?
no, I'd say a little bit less than that. Like when you're talking 3% on,
$11,000.
yeah, it's,
11,700 to 12,051.
yeah, it's a minimal increase.
But we would like to get a grant, and if we get a grant for 800 and some $1,000, we'd like to throw $200,000 in to pave it.
Some of $800 doesn't cover that.
Yeah,
It's $351 increase, actually.
yeah. Counselor Rudy.
So you'll provide another opportunity for us to provide feedback, but do you want any questions right now for what's proposed in here?
You can ask your questions as we go through this, because obviously the schedules that we're not mentioning have no changes, and they're staying the same as last year. I'll put that caveat out there that with Director Lefebvre not being at this meeting, I may not have answers for some of your questions, and allowing you to bring it back to or us to bring it back at the next ledge allows Director Lefebvre an opportunity to answer your questions.
Well, 3% to me, I mean, if we're gonna do something, let's do something.
Well, the airport has an annual 3% increase, so every year it increases 3%.
Oh,
So, this isn't, it's,
yeah, I knew that, sir.
yeah.
Eventually we'll get there, give us 62 years.
I do have two quick questions, not about the airport. The one thing that pops out right away for me is the mention of a discount for funerals.
Okay, can you hold on to
Yeah,
that till
I
I
can-
get there?
Oh, are we going through each one
Yeah,
thing?
I will go through the memo with all the changes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry,
fine.
I misunderstood you.
Yep.
Okay, so then moving on to Schedule D, arena admission fees and charges. After comparing our rates to neighboring municipalities, the following fees and charges are being proposed to be implemented in September of 2025. So ice surface, youth local per hour increases from $95 to $120, which is an increase of $25 per hour. Adult local per hour increases from 160 to 180, which is an increase of $20 per hour. Junior hockey per hour practice occurring Monday through Thursday before 3 p.m. increases from $80 to $100. Youth non-local per hour increases from 125 to 130, so an increase of $5. And adult non-local per hour increases from 176 to 180, which is an increase of $4. Non-ice surface per hour increases to $40, from $40 to $45, which is an increase of $5 per hour. And not-for-profit rate, administration is recommending a % discount as opposed to an hourly rate. And then the upstairs semi-private area, rental revised to a 60-minute increment increase from $30 to $35, which is an increase of $5 an hour.
Okay,
Okay. Just a couple things. First off, just looking at this, if we're going to say local and non-local, right now, adult local and then adult non-local would be the same price. So there would be no use at saying local and non if we're not gonna have a price difference in those two. The other thing was then looking at youth local versus youth non-local there as well. And I'm not trying to make anything expensive for youth, but if we are saying, hey, we've got this for youth local, I think if we're even having a non-local category again, it should be more than $5 more or $10 more than the look like. If we're saying our youth local gets a discount, then youth non-local should be at least $20 higher. In my personal opinion, I would say that's a thing. And then the junior hockey, two things to this. We should have a definite definition of what is considered junior, only because I believe we call like junior B, for example, is that what we relate to being junior type of thing? And where would say if we had a for-profit versus non-for-profit, just so that we capture those. And then the last thing I have on that one was, in the junior rate, we have what it would be if they were coming before 3:30, which I know is a bonus to us because we don't rent it out, but we don't indicate what it would be after hours or on weekends.
Right, that would be,
Sorry.
those are all good questions. So most places that we've done with this study is we have a non-prime time and a prime time hockey rate. To me, it'd be simpler if we just simplified it to prime time and non-prime time. So anything before 3:30 would be non-prime time. Prime time would be your 180 an hour for your seniors or your junior teams. Your youth would be your 120, let's say. And that would go from 3:30 till 11 p.m. at night. And would start at 7 in the morning for Saturday and Sunday and end at, say, 11 at night on Saturday and 5 for prime time. So you're charging those high prices, right?
So as far as cost recovery goes, we're struggling to get to 23%.
42% we're at
With this rate here, 42.
with our current rate.
At 42
42%, I did the math for you.
on the arena.
What the arena runs about, if we run all our recreation, we're at 42%. If I broke it down to where we have our,
Well, that's not bad.
no,
I mean, these other municipalities that are running at 78, I mean,
yes,
yeah, they're, well, I don't know, but
yes. And that includes that 42% will include our multiplex, our arena, our pool, any facility that we have, so.
We have some changes though.
so are you taking in some grant funding and stuff in those numbers too? Yeah, like, okay, yeah, I see.
All I did was take away our income from our expense and average it. So, which I'm pretty sure all your other municipalities are doing, which is
Oh,
their percentages.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, well, if we take in,
If you take those out, we're probably sitting around a 30 mark.
yeah. Okay, so that's a start.
We're getting there.
So, do we want to go prime and non-prime time? Is youth, I mean, when we say junior hockey, then we include that age group, correct?
I consider it junior A or junior B.
But they're both the same age group.
Right.
But in one case, like
One's
in
for
our previous
profit.
One was for profit, one
Yeah,
was not.
yeah.
So that's a
One's not.
consideration too, right?
To me, if we do non-prime and prime time, if people want to save money, they're going to book our non-prime time ice and fill up our voids, right? If you want to pay to get the prime time, that's what you're going to get.
How about we leave this one, you take a look at again? Because there is some stuff that is,
The communities that I did get hold of, and unfortunately the lady had a family emergency and we're only 75% done our study. We didn't get some numbers back. But we hit up Vegreville, #1. We did Bonnyville, Drayton Valley, Edson, Lac-La-Biche, Mornville, and Viking. And we went from any admission in the pool to ice time to age groups to ball diamonds to social centers to halls. We're putting all that together. We just run out of time before we could get here, so. But we're right in the middle of the pack for our ice time.
so, and no matter what we do with the fees and charges bylaw, not gonna affect our budget.
No.
That's correct.
Why don't we take the time to get this right? Do you think that we could have something in place for January 1?
Yes.
Are you guys good that we just take a little more time and just go through it and?
There was a couple considerations, I thought.
The only thing, to have our 2025 fees and charges ready to start January 1, we have to pass it on December 9th. But that gives us, we have 2 weeks between ledge meetings now where we can.
We could pass stuff in a hurry here.
Oh, I know that.
We're very
But
efficient.
that's, our last council meeting of the year is December 9th, so
2
that'll
weeks
be the
would
last
work
one.
too.
Okay, so we're gonna work on this especially the arena. Can we just keep moving down
Yep,
further
we'll
on
keep
the
moving
list?
down, and we'll, Schedule D will be one that administration will work on the different scenarios for. Okay, moving to Schedule E, which is building, permit fees. So add building permit cancellation fees as follows. Plan reviewed, report completed, but no permit issued yet is 75% of permit return fee. Within 30 days of plan review, permit issued with no work started is 50% of the permit fee returned. And after 30 days of review and permit issued, 0% is returned.
Are we gonna see anything where we're gonna try to raise the cost of permits?
I don't think so, no, that's not being touched. Again, this is one of the questions that I can't answer for Director LaFave. I'm not sure that the research that they did, I think they increased last year, so maybe,
Yeah, I'm not seeing, okay, so. I know that some people that have applied for some permitting, development permits and stuff within our municipality, some people that are taking a big role in the future of our community are very impressed with our permitting cost. I think what we're looking at here is if it's a cancellation, how much did this change from last time?
well, currently, right now, it's a refund's a refund. But unfortunately, administration, like planning and development, does actually do quite a bit of work to get the permit and stuff like that. So this is recouping some of that staff time.
Director Saski.
I'm just looking at the development budget, and so with these changes that are proposed, they did not actually increase of any of the revenues at this point in time. So our operating budget is as it is, so if council elects to maybe increase permitting fees or even approve this stepped portion, it's not gonna impact our operating budget unless it's the will of council to add additional revenues in. So this is also something that can be looked at up until December as well.
Yeah, well, just trying to recoup some of the money that the time spent on a permit application, on a cancellation. I think we can all agree that this is acceptable. Okay,
Okay, moving on to Schedule G, which is cemetery fees. And the perpetual care fee has increased from 15% to 20% and will now apply to all charges and invoices rather than only the sales on lots and niches.
this still doesn't fix the problem.
No, it doesn't.
But it's something.
Something. Yeah.
I mean, it's
We have to start someplace because it wasn't started
100 years ago. Yeah. We should have had it in place then. Okay, I think everybody's good with that one. Labor vehicle,
Yes, so the fleet list has been updated to remove out of commission equipment and add new units, units 93, 552, 564, and 568. Hourly rates for rental fees have been increased for almost all equipment at an average rate of 12%, which is an average increase of $12.26 per hour. Daily rates for rental fees have been increased to an average rate of 24%, which is an average increase of $22 per day. Out-of-town travel rates have increased from 75 cents a kilometer to 81 cents a kilometer, which is an increase of 6 cents a kilometer.
now this is what we're talking about on our services provided.
Yes, that is when we go, if
Is it on a contract that we already have, or are we bound?
no,
Okay.
No.
So this is something that we don't do every day, that doesn't have a contract behind it.
yes, if we're asked to come in and fix something for somebody, these would be the labor rates that we would try, or, charge, that's the word, thank you. Schedule M, library complex fee rental fees and charges. The gymnasium rate for full-day rental increases from $300 to $400, an increase of $100. If it is the will of council, administration is proposing to decrease the discounts for nonprofits, youth-based events, or funerals to 10 to 15%. Discounts are currently applied at the following rates. Nonprofits is a 20%, youth-based is 30%, and funerals is 20%.
Go ahead, Councilor Wood.
So this is, I guess, when we talked about the discount for funerals, again, this is something that I didn't realize that this was applicable. And I guess I'm a little confused why funerals would be offered a discount instead of the not-for-profit, either on the library or the social center. And I guess, going back to our previous discussion with the social center usage, I understand it's a specialized building, as is the library complex. We want to be able to encourage usage of it, but I do find it a little bit odd that not-for-profit would be getting the discount. Makes sense to me. Youth would be getting a discount, which makes sense to me. I'm not sure I understand the funeral discount.
If I can, that's always been in there. It started at 35 or 40%. We're trying to work it down lower every year. I don't think funerals should get a discount either, but that's up to you guys to tell me yay or nay, so.
And this was a discussion for the 2024 fees and charges bylaw. The discussion was around the discounts for funerals as well. And at the time, the will of council was what it was set at 20%.
Discussion?
Sorry. I'm going to go with Councillor Cooper's, or former Councillor Cooper's phrase, convince me. Like, I don't understand. It makes sense to me that not-for-profits and youth groups are fundraising, there are limited funds, you want to make those facilities accessible. I'm not certain, and to be quite fair, we've got, again, it's a different time. We've got a beautiful facility. Autumn Rose has done an incredible glow up to their facility, and certainly it doesn't accommodate large funerals, and we've all attended funerals that need to have a larger location. I'm not certain why that 20%, even though it is less than it was before, convinced me. Like, I don't understand why that would be there.
As far as it's been part of the bylaw for as long as I've been here. So it predates me. I don't know the reasoning behind it.
Me neither. I've never seen it before, and
And
I'm not gonna try to convince you, because I don't.
Councilor Barry? Convince me.
Yeah, convince me. No, I'll convince it the other way. I would agree with you. We should drop it. And have the discounts only for the nonprofit and the youth.
Councilor Bullock?
I think I'll support my colleagues with that one too. So you're not taking it with you, I guess, so to speak?
Well, again,
Okay.
Councilor Roy?
I'm not trying to convince anybody of it, because this was obviously there well before our times. I'm just using some of my past experience. I remember us in a community that I was on council from before. I ended up sitting on the Community Center Association. We ended up adding it in, and I just remember the rationale at the time. Not that that's being used to convince anybody of it, but at the time they were looking at it that, once upon a time your small community halls were primarily used by local community members who had spent multiple years renting it for fun events and good events, and
Or
they
building
said,
it, donating their time to
building their
upgrade it,
time,
yeah.
and we said after all those years, if they're in a sad moment of a funeral, it was just a small sign of respect and a small number of dollars. That is why I believe we did it at the time in our community. So I'm just throwing it out there. I can see removing it, but I would not be upset with leaving it just because volunteers are short, and if there's a 5-second way to help or show appreciation, I'm okay leaving it.
And again, and I get where you're going in smaller communities for sure, because the maintenance, the upkeep, the fundraising to keep those halls open. We don't have a lot of people that are raising funds for the social center or volunteer to paint it or fix the dishwasher.
I know, I think that's probably how it came about, though.
I think we've heard from Councilor Riddick what your thoughts are. I hope you're convinced. Councilor Curtis?
Thank you. I'm not opposed to removing it, and if we're comfortable with the proposal of dropping the not-for-profit and youth-based down to 15, then I'm good with that as well.
Okay, Councilor Lamco?
Yep, I agree with my colleague to the right of me and the rest. I could go either way, honestly, on the funerals. Councillor Warawa makes a good point about the efforts of those people who built it in the past, get a discount, but I don't think it really matters to them because they're not part of it anymore. It's their family that gets the discount. So I could remove it more than keep it.
It's, again, it's not a lot of money one way or the other here. So I think what I'm hearing is that if we take out the discount for funerals and we go for nonprofit and youth-based to 15%, everybody would be good with that?
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on to Schedule N, which is the multiplex facilities fees and charges. Non-ice surface per hour increases from $45 to $50, an increase of $5, and it's per hour. Hourly rate for nonprofits is revised from $35 per hour to a 10% discount, equating to $45 per hour for nonprofits.
Are you talking they rent the whole,
That's for the non-ice surface. So that would be like the upstairs, the lounge. So, we'd be, raising the price, per hour to $50 an hour, but if they're a nonprofit, it would remain at 45, because they'd get a 10% discount.
do we rent the lounge out?
I haven't in the 2.5 years I did.
I've been up there, but, well, like with Ag Society or the Cultural Association, and they're not paying anything.
The only time I've ever seen that used is when the society has it booked as per our agreement, or Curling has it, as per their agreement.
So we probably don't offer is the space.
I've never seen anybody ever rent.
I've never seen anybody.
Director Saskew.
At one point in time, back when I worked for Wild and Company, we did have our tax party there one evening, Tuesday in April.
Again, it could be another good opportunity to put
Something in that building when it's sitting there empty, yeah. Because it's not a bad, I mean, there, yeah,
Other than the accessibility
yes.
constraints, like
Yeah.
like it's upstairs, so like if there's a baby shower, grandma can't make it up the stairs, so.
There is no handicap accessibility to that either, so.
So, again, we have 3 users of that facility. And, I mean, those contracts are pretty much done. So this is, if somebody else would like, let's say a trade show want to rent the ice surface, but there's no ice in the summer. What's the rate then?
It's the same as our dry pad in the arena, which I believe is on a $45 or $55 an hour rental rate.
Doesn't even pay the lights.
That's our average from going through our studies. That's our average fee.
Okay, go ahead.
I did have a question that was posed to me about the multiplex, about the increase in the annual rental. So when it's broken down by per hour usage, is it possible to do a comparison between what it used to be and what it currently is? I was told the difference is thousands of dollars different than what it used to be, but I did point out that the number of user groups that it would have been shared, I mean, there was a time that there was Super League and Women's League and Men's League and Youth and Mixed. We don't have any of those anymore.
Yeah, well, we still lose money. Don't worry.
Well, and so I guess it's very difficult for me to be able to come back and verify that. So I guess what I would be curious about too, in this instance, we're increasing by $5 per hour, but if you only have one group that's using it,
But that's just the upstairs, right?
sorry, yeah.
Our big comparison difference for years, as I'm sure it's the curling club reaching out to you saying, why is it so high and different? You gotta look at the price of our utilities as well.
Okay.
That's where the biggest cost comes into it, right? They're not the same as 10 years ago.
Thank
They're
you.
not the same as 3 years ago. Everything's through the roof.
Okay, thank you.
So when we turn the building over to the Heather Curling Club for 7 months,
5, I think. March till October to March.
So, yeah, so we recoup basically half of our costs when we turn that building over to them. And those months are huge. The utility bills are huge.
And we're paying an ice maker as well.
Yeah.
If they want to cut $2,400 out of their bill a month, they could do their own ice. Wouldn't have to pay that.
So again, we don't even know what the future of that building looks like. So, I mean, as long as they can keep it running, and they have their own reserves to do some fixes with. And we share a small reserve, $100,000 reserve, so. But we're not changing right now where we're at with the Heather Curling Club. We already have a contract situation with them, so we can't really do too much about. I mean, I would love to see that facility used more,
Me
for
too.
sure. And I even brought it up with the Ag Society. Like, they're saying, well, we don't use it because we only have it a couple days a year. Well, in actual fact, in the contract, which is expired, they actually have free use of it for 30 days. So, so they're like, well, we should start using it more. But I said, the contract also says you will pay the electric bills for those 30 days you're using and the janitorial. And we've never charged them for anything before. But it would be nice if they used it more, for sure. I mean, just to justify that building sitting there at the huge cost of the taxpayers in this town. Okay, so we're all good with the multiplex. Basically, we're talking about the upstairs, the rental of the lounge, non-curling season.
Right.
Okay,
Could be.
keep going.
Okay, moving on to Schedule O, municipal enforcement fees and charges. Level 1 community peace officer hourly rate increases from $86 to $88, which is an increase of $2. Patrol unit per kilometer rate for peace officers increases from 79 cents to 81 cents, which is an increase of 2 cents. Bylaw enforcement officer hourly rate increases from $63 to $65, which is an increase of $2. And patrol unit per kilometer rate for bylaw officer has been added at 79% kilometers. 79 cents per kilometer. I did not say that properly the first go around.
Go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
The patrol unit per kilometer for bylaw has been added. We weren't charging that before?
It's in the contracts, but it wasn't in the fees and charges bylaw.
Okay.
So, we do charge it out on our contracts, but, it wasn't in the bylaw.
Okay, and I think it should be 81 cents as well, equal to the other one. I also think the charges for per hour should be more than what you're proposing. And I'll be vocal on that because we're trying to capture costs and those vehicles are going out of town
And we currently have one bylaw contract that we're tied to rates now for a couple of years. So while we could increase it, it won't touch that contract.
But it does escalate every year, that contract.
It does escalate every year, yes.
So moving forward, this is what you're proposing with any new contracts at these prices?
Yes. So we could turn around and we can put the kilometers the same. That's fine.
It's not like somebody's hiring us by the day every once in a while, giving us a call.
Yeah. That's part of the contract. Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry, Councillor.
That's fine, thank you. Where do we get the $2 charged from? Is that similar to other towns charging out, or?
It's just been an escalator in the contracts.
So we're just following that only, so now you're saying if a new contract comes up, each year the fees and charges are gonna go up with the escalator, and then any new contract would follow the new rate? Okay, sorry, that's my bad.
And that's the way it's been now, like, every time we have a contract, we built that escalator in every year. So would be the base, the starting point of any new contract, and then the rest would be added to it. You wanna see it raised?
yes.
Anybody else feel that way? Councillor Riddick.
Well,
I'm not opposed to recouping the costs. I guess the challenge is that if we have outside contracts, it's a delicate balance to be able to maintain, seek, and continue to offer those services. I think we've had some recent experience with pricing that has been potentially more challenging than maybe we thought at this side of the table. All that to say that I think I'm comfortable with the way that it is currently, understanding that, of course, that there are some elements to this that will be, I think we have to behave differently in some senses, and this is one of those areas that as a hub to the region, providing these kind of services means that we not only have the capability to provide services, we also need to be able to recoup our costs and potentially pat ourselves for the future too.
Okay.
I would be okay seeing an increase. My only rationale is, of course, I know we have to honor what we have in place. My only thing is just that I appreciate being a hub for the area, but again, that hub often, sadly, in a lot of areas, lands back, whether it's recreation or whatnot, on our taxpayers. So I don't want to, I mean, if it was really easy to get or we were really expensive, they'd be doing their own.
Yep.
So that's the thing. So I would be okay raising it to a point where it's like you can use us because we'd be the same as other people, or you can go on your own. But it's also, we never really capture some of our, admin and other different things that we do. So I would be okay with an increase.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Worship. Well, I would certainly look at an increase as well. If we have contracts that this doesn't affect right now,
No, this doesn't affect.
then I would raise it right now so that the next contract or renewal of contracts, we have this as a base. And I don't think $2 is very much. What if it's 2 years before, so I would raise it now.
One more thing to add.
Director Sasky.
Thank you. I was just going to note that in this year's budget, myself and Manager Newton went through the contracts. Those haven't been updated in a couple of years. And it's gotten the municipal enforcement an additional $50,000 in revenue based on the projected contracts. So between CAO Ling and Manager Newton working in these last 2 years and setting up for ourselves for success for future contracts and better rates, it's an additional $50,000. So they have been working to improve cost recoveries for sure.
Okay, Councillor Bullock.
And my understanding is we're using a used truck still, and that truck's gonna get miled out real quick with these contracts, and they're gonna be looking at new trucks with increases every year. So we're gonna have to capture that as well. So that's why.
Well, luckily, we've seen
We have the
the
reserve.
trucks came down quite a bit, but there's still what it goes, from where they were 2 years ago.
Still have to be written down.
Yeah, all I'm saying is we need to be careful about our contracted services because we just hired another person to fill a role on a contract. So what are the contracts up with for the CPOs? We have 3 contracts for that service and 1 for bylaw.
Yeah, that's correct, Your Worship. We're currently in the towns of Tofield, Lamont, the village of Andrew for bylaw, and the town of Mundare.
I think those actually, I think all those contracts are in their year 2, maybe?
I think 2026.
They either expire at end of 2026 or
Tofield.
is something.
So what are you guys proposing if it's at $2 now and then for then if we're in a contract situation, we can't do anything because
Well,
but if you're saying more than $2 an hour for the next contract, and then that escalator would be written into that contract as well.
Well, then I'm saying we start the contracts probably at 92 per hour.
Okay, so like a $4.
If I may add one thing, Your Worship, I recently found out there has been a private contract going around and talking to our contracts, offering their services as well, but our current contracts are very happy with their service at this time.
Okay.
It's up to council. We can definitely increase it. Like we said, it doesn't affect the current contracts. If you want the escalator to be higher by the time we go to renegotiate contracts, to give us a better starting point, we can push it up to $90 an hour. If, that way if we have to hire out for a special event or something, these are the rates that they would get.
Okay, well, what I don't wanna do is end up being too high,
Priced out of the market.
price of the market, and then we have a contract for somebody, and then they're sitting here and, cause we already contracted these people to work for us, so, go ahead.
So I have a question, like to tag on to the point that you just raised with a private provider going out and potentially approaching our current contracts. Is there a way to, do we know what they're charging?
The service, from what I understand, is what they're providing was just strictly bylaw enforcement. I don't know what that includes with them because they'd be a contracted municipality. It's not contracting another municipality. But from what I understand, for just the bylaw rates, it was at least $20 less than what we're currently doing. But again, our contract is still happy with us right now.
This is what the Village of Andrew told you?
Missed it by minutes, walking in and out the door.
Weird.
I didn't know there was a private contractor that did this type of work, but. Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, I'm gonna say that, cause it's 3 against 3 here. Nice.
But,
Again,
Sorry, Your Worship.
and again, we have relationships with these municipalities. This is exactly what the escalator would look like within the current contract, correct?
yes, and if you want, we can put a pause on this one and bring it back for next, the next meeting up for discussion. And we can pull the contract, see what our escalator is, and, because I think it's a percentage again.
Yeah, it is. I know exactly it is. So, I mean, this is damn close to what the contract already says. So that's what they're expecting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll wait till you bring those contracts back with the real news on the escalator.
Okay. So we will leave that for now. Okay, moving on to Schedule Q, planning and development fees. A subdivision application fee increases from $500 to $700, which is an increase of $200. And I know Director Lefebvre spoke about this at the last meeting, and he said that with the subdivision board that has to be called in, and the costs that are incurred there, the $500 wasn't actually covering the costs of calling that committee together. So the increase is literally just to cover the cost of having the board meet.
Anybody opposed to that?
No, they don't happen often anyway, so.
Okay.
All right. Schedule S, reception, wow. Recreation, facility fees and charges. So we have here, student drop-in rates increase from $6.50 to $7, an increase of 50 cents to stay consistent with the Shinny drop-in pricing. Pool rental, a public group rental increases from $125 to $140 per hour, an increase of $15. An additional $15 fee will be added for the slide, so it increases $5. An additional $40 fee will be added to the Whibbit, which increases the cost $20. Additional guard fees for all rental increases from $30 to $35 per hour. It's an increase of $5. Pool rental pool rental school groups increases from $60 to $75 per hour, so it's an increase of $15. School swimming lessons increases as follow. Kindergarten to grade 1, 5 at 45-minute sessions increased from $33 to $35 per hour, or per student, so it's an increase of $2. Kindergarten to grade 1, 6 at 45-minute sessions increases from $39 to $40 per student, so it's an increase of $1. And grades 2 to 6, 5 at 60-minute sessions increased from $38 to $40 per student, an increase of $2 per student. Private lessons increased from $30 to $35 per person, so that's a $5 increase. And fitness studio rental increases from $35 to $40, a $5 increase as well.
Any problems there? Go ahead.
Sorry. I swear this question I have been asked, so I'm just looking for a piece of clarification. Can you clarify what our definition of a student is? And the only reason I ask that, I think of student as a school, anybody in grade 12 or under, but I know people have come to us before asking if you're in college or like what do we define student? That's all I need to know.
Good question. I define student as anybody 18 and under.
Okay.
If you're 18, you're an adult.
Go ahead.
I know
Tom.
everyone's heard that.
I don't have a problem with any of this. I guess the only thing I would say is that there has been a challenge in the past with communicating it with people, for example, that rent the studio, so that they need to be told before they arrive to go pay for the rental, that they should be contacted. That would be only prudent as an operator of a facility to be able to notify folks.
I totally agree, and that would be the intention. If it gets passed, then we'll give them a leeway to adjust their.
So we'll do our communication to them directly for people that rent on a routine basis. Excellent.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councilor Curtis.
Thank you. I'm blanking on what the 5 at.
Those are just how many people are in per group of lessons
Oh, so the maximum, that
Be a
group would be
5,
5
yeah.
people at $35 per person.
per person, yeah.
Thank you.
So if you have 10, you obviously need 2 guards, 2 instructors, right? So.
Okay.
Okay, moving along, Schedule T, which is signage permit fees. So add a storage fee for non-compliant signage at a rate of $20 per day, this is new. And add removal of non-compliant signage will be charged at the labor, equipment, and vehicle rental rates as per section L. So example, a quarter ton to a 3/4 ton truck only is $36.80 per hour. An operator at $62.73 per hour, labor at $49.20 per hour, and an administration fee at 15%.
Even if it's a sandwich board?
Well, they have to put it in the truck and take it away for storage.
So then we probably wouldn't charge for the laborer, just the operator to pick that up.
I'm guessing, yes, again.
I mean, we would use our discretion here. If it needs 2 people to pick the sign up loaded on the truck, or if it needs a bobcat.
Yeah, and these are for,
Yep.
these are based on those highway signage, so they're more than one person can lift, so.
And again,
Yep.
we've had complaints about sandwich boards where they're not supposed to be 2, and we have to pick those up. I just wouldn't want us to be charging a laborer, an operator, and a forklift, for loading a sandwich board. And so, yeah.
So we don't currently have a permit for sandwich board fees.
Well, because if, it all depends where you're located at, if it's on your property frontage, or if another business gives you permission.
Right.
But if not, then that board needs to get picked up and taken away.
Yep.
Usually we would contact the people and ask them to do it on their own. Hopefully, we would get to that point.
Courtesy would be to contact them first.
Yes. Okay, well, I guess we're good with that.
Okay. Schedule V, social center facility fees and charges. So as noted in Schedule M, administration is proposing to decrease the discounts for nonprofits or funerals to 15%. Discounts are currently applied at the following rates: nonprofits at 20% and funerals at 20%.
So I guess the 15 and 0 works.
Okay.
All right.
and I don't want to appear heartless. I'm not certain that I understand the reasoning. And, yeah, that's literally, I would need to be convinced. But I think if there's a pinch point that we experience coming forward, I wouldn't want this to be, so if we have folks that can't afford to pay for the facility,
That would be something I think they should come to me, and then I could take it to you guys, and you can make that decision.
I think like administratively, there needs to be like a way to collate that information and bring it to us. As well as, I think, again, we don't necessarily do a great job of sharing all of our myriad facilities. I mean, it is more obvious on our website than it used to be, but people are used to going to the social center for everything, but they may not be aware that the library complex is another place that they could go, which is cheaper and still accommodates a large group of people. So if they couldn't afford the social center, that they could also use the library complex. So again, if there are some instances that arise, I would expect that we will hear about it, but yeah, thank you.
I
ahead,
agree with you as far as like, I think that if somebody is contacting you, our role should certainly be to present them other options, taking into consideration some of the financial. I don't think we could be in a position where we could suggest, based upon whether somebody can or cannot, that we would be able to not, because that would be a slippery slope. And the very worst thing is you would have to at some point ask for, you know, almost like proof of ability, which if we ever did at that kind of time would, oh my goodness, we think Rant and Rave loved us before, right? So, but I think that's awesome if we have a better list of look at facility I didn't even know was available, not that it'd be for that, but like if we have that and we're willing to help people with other suggestions, I think that's a great thing we could give or offer.
Okay, we're good there.
Okay, moving on to Schedule W, solid waste fees. The term household batteries has been revised to non-residential batteries at no change to the rate. Garbage fees have increased as follows. Additional non-residential collection per container was $18.50, and they'd like to increase it to $20, which is an increase of $1.50. And then monthly bin rental currently is $56, and they'd like to increase it to $70, which is $14 per bin. Microwaves have been removed from landfill tipping fees, as microwaves are now included in the e-waste program. And rates for commercial wastewater has been moved to Schedule X, utilities, fees, and charges.
Okay, so non-res, so business, they own their own bin. And when it's full, they get one weekly pickup. And I can tell you, all the years I was in business, I could get by every week with that one. But I phoned all the time because it was full, usually every Monday morning. And I had to pay for some other drywall crew or somebody from out of town. Director Saskew's dad, just the other day, I seen him on a Monday morning walking across the street to use the one because his was full. I don't know how much more we're expecting from non-res, from businesses. Those that have theirs within inside their gate, and if they can't get by with one, they bought two. Most businesses can manage their solid waste. It's the extra that shows up every day and every weekend. How can we force this on them? I mean, I remember it was $5 and I was upset that at least 3 times a month I was paying an extra $5 just so I could start my week with an empty can. And again, I guess we could all put locks on our private cans and have them rip the lids off somehow, and then, because you gotta pay for your own lid. So I don't know, just to me, like, there's not too many businesses that can't get by in this town with one can. And if they can't, they'll have two. It's these extra charges is when they come to Monday morning and they're full, or Tuesday afternoon, whatever, they're full. And now we're asking them to bear because we can't seem to get we see it every day. I mean, you drive by on the weekends, businesses that aren't open, and you'll see vehicles that are filling up their cans, so. I mean, we haven't heard a lot of complaints about it at 1850. So if we're gonna do anything, I don't think we should penalize them anymore. Really, it doesn't make any sense. It's not their waste. What's your mom say?
She wants to know if she can keep her garbage can.
She owns it. She owns it. Yeah, so, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I wouldn't change it either.
Yeah, there's no sense stirring the pot anymore on this.
I empathize with what you're saying, because certainly there are a lot of non-residents that come and dispose of their waste in town. I don't think $20 is exorbitant, because I would be curious to know how often this is happening. Because that's the other part. As much as I empathize with the business owner that may be assuming the cost of disposing waste that isn't their own, that they haven't generated, how often is this happening? So that would be the other part too, is that if we're sending out a truck to do additional lifts, we cannot, it doesn't make sense for the rest of the community to absorb that cost either. So I don't know what this might be something that I'd like to know, like how often does this happen? Are we doing additional call-outs once a year, once a week, multiple times a week? I mean, that changes my approach to that too.
Well, usually the truck would be going by, but it still comes down to, I mean, we're charging them for somebody else's waste. And again, I guess they could build a fence or put a lock on their own garbage container.
Well, a chain link fence, as we know, I mean, we just removed one from the landfill. Obviously, that's a bigger fence, but I mean, fencing is quite a bit more than, potentially an extra $20 a week. Or I guess I would be very curious to know how often this is happening, and then we'd have a better idea.
Our extra pickups amount to $50,000 a year.
And again, some could be related to business. I know there's lots of times that on a Thursday, I'd be like, I am just gonna keep everything inside until they dump on Friday. And then, cause I knew I had a big week or something, and I didn't wanna call them to come and pay again. And then on Monday, it was full again anyway. Had no room. Go ahead, Councilor Bullock.
That 50,000, not just the business, or is that residential as well?
That is correct. It's a separate line item, so any of the invoicing that we do for bin rentals and extra pickups is a separate line item. So that's $50,000 per year. The residential garbage fees are $230,000 per year.
So, again, empathizing with local businesses, I mean, maybe there's another component to it. We have to be able to, I mean, of all of the services that we provide, that we are not able to recoup costs on, that's one of the ones that's very difficult to be able to manage. I mean, the extended producer responsibility actually provides an opportunity to mine from the garbage and encourage, and this might actually be helpful for our business community. This might be an education campaign to ensure that paper and cardboard is removed from their waste stream, because that actually that will be the next stage in extended producer responsibility. But I'm not sure that $2.
I really don't think that's the problem. I don't think it's because of that they need extra pickups. It's either they got busier or somebody else decided that they wanted the space in that bin more. But if you're okay leaving it where it's at, it is $20. We'll make $58,000 next year.
Well,
What are your thoughts? Okay, $20. Where do you want to be?
20.
I know exactly what you're saying, because even my back alley is kind of quiet, and I see them coming by there all the time, using our bin, dumping it. But I don't think $20 is that high. But I think we need to try and figure out some way how we can crack it down and stop people from just disposing into these commercial bins.
Okay. Councillor Bullock, you said,
1850.
okay.
It's through.
Sure. 1850 it is. I just love to save on-res money.
All right, so we're gonna remain at 1850 for the extra pickups. What about the monthly bin rental?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we don't do a lot of that.
So you're okay with it at $70?
Well, just to take it over there, drop it off and pick it up.
All right, okay, moving on to Schedule X, utility fees and charges. So rates for commercial wastewater have been revised to $5 per meter cubed, irrelevant to vehicle size. Sorry, that doesn't make sense to me, but,
Yeah, well,
There
we,
used to be sizes, like if you had a Super V versus a half ton.
oh, okay, because you're used, okay, in the prior one, there was size, vehicle sizes, okay. So, yeah, commercial wastewater has been revised to $5 per cubic meter. Water rates have increased as follow: per cubic meter, currently $3.41, moving to $3.49, which is an increase of 8 cents per cubic meter. Bulk water volume charges per cubic meter currently is $6.36, moving to $6.55, an increase of 19 cents per cubic meter. This is increased 3% annually. Water service application fee increases from $25 to $35, so it's an increase of $10, and this fee has not been adjusted since 2010. Water meter installation / removal has been revised to request for service, and the rates will be determined by Schedule L, labor, equipment, and vehicle rental rates.
okay, so the wastewater is now we can meter it, right? So that's the big deal. Before, guys used to show up with tri-drive vac trucks. Oh, they got half a load on. Yeah. Yeah, they dump it right in the lagoon. Now it doesn't matter, it's all metered, so.
30 cubic meters legally.
Yeah. So anybody got any problem with that? I mean, the water rate is where we're really gonna be having some issues for a little while until we get this all straightened out, but hopefully by the summer that we can have this something more permanent, like a real number we can work off. Like I said, right now, the John Espatuke is taking 15 cents of that last increase, and that, shouldn't be in that balancing fund, so.
What do you mean taking 15 cents?
Of what the Northeast has recommended for their coming year, they would like now for us to contribute to their capital reserves now. So the John Espatuke has picked up 15 cents a cube. We're taking out of a balancing fund that it's really not, it's out of reserves to offset some of the costs until we can get to the court and stuff, so. Okay, so we're all good with that. We'll take a look at the ice rentals and, we'll be good. Okay. Round table. Let's talk to Councillor Lemko. How's things? What have you been hearing?
Can we eat again? I've been gone for a week, so I was away, so
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with my family and kids, so I haven't heard nothing on the street. I just got back.
Excellent. Well, we hope you had a good time and you're ready to get back to work. Roll up your sleeves and
Already?
dig in.
You bet.
No fishing for a while.
Nope.
Good. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you. A few people asked about a big building that was rolling down the highway, and that was stirring up some excitement, asking where it was going and repurposing it for our use, which is good because I believe it was going to be torn down anyway, so it worked out for both parties there. And then just the buzz again about the plaza and the daycare and the potential second daycare, and it's stirring up a lot of good chatter around town, which is nice. So that is what I've been hearing.
Excellent. Councillor Rudick.
I've had some questions posed about museum and the Sports Hall of Fame. Understanding that those are two separate entities. I've also had a question about social center rental, and some of the upgrades in terms of labeling and signage outside, as well as the parking lot. That, again, it's sort of, it always has had an odd configuration, but there are no lines painted currently, which might be helpful when it's not snowy to have the lines painted in the parking lot, and we haven't done that for quite some time. And also a question about the gate being closed during major events, that folks have had to walk around rather than go through the fence. Or
One went through the
gate.
fence.
Yeah, in the wrong location. And then as for the daycare, I had a grant that was forwarded to me from one of the county councillors, that there is a provincial grant that's available to encourage the development of more childcare spaces. So this needs to be shared with the group that is doing the childcare space. So it's a federal provincial child care agreement grant that was provided by the Director of Child Care Supports and Grant Administration for the region, which is Robert Andrews. So I'll send this over to whom, I'm not certain, but I'm not sure that we were sharing that information with them, that there are some provincial grant funds available for both private and public operators for daycare spaces.
Maybe when, if and when the development permits for new daycare facilities go through downstairs, we could maybe share that information at that time.
Yeah, I'll just forward this on to admin.
Thank you very much.
I didn't have a lot, and I think Councillor Rudick said mine too, but mine was also about particularly Remembrance Day and not being able to go through the gate. So that was there. I know there's some challenges with that too, as to who has access where and when, but they were talking about just particularly the walk-through gate on that. And then I also got a daycare call as well, and it was from a new family that apparently is moving in and is moving on the 28th, which I said I'm excited to have another young family moving in. But they did talk about if in future there would be like a list again of where to go for daycare services, but they were even looking at day homes. But the problem is, like I did kind of indicate, there's not a lot of day homes available anymore. A lot of that has changed. Regulations took some out, COVID took some out, but there's not a lot. So I do know that the FCSS kept a little bit of a list, though. I think people can still check with them, but that's all I got.
Thank you. Councillor Bullock.
Thank you. Well, some of the questions I got, a couple of interesting ones. One person called and asked me why we're, allowing tiny homes to be built in Foxview. So kind of let them know what's really going on and about the actual residential homes that are being built with the proposed maybe area for some triplexes and stuff. So that rumor was dispelled kind of quickly there in that phone call. Another thing, I was getting actually a few inquiries about what's going on behind the police station. And I just said, that's where the new prison's going.
Yeah. Federally funded.
Yeah. So, joking, obviously, but but yeah, that's what they were asking. What's going on behind there? So.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Worship. Not a lot of complaints that I've been hearing or et cetera, but I will fill in. I was able to attend my first ever assessment review board hearing.
Oh, finally, all that training.
The CARB, and Leslie was also involved in that as an assessment clerk. It was interesting. It was different. The presiding officer I recognized right off the bat as being the primary instructor that I've had each time that I've taken the course. So I was really relieved and pleased on that we had some really good professional advice there. I will say it was a challenge of the assessment of a commercial, well, not really commercial, it's residential, but a complex. And I actually kind of was disappointed in how well both sides presented their cases. And I was expecting to hear some really good arguments both ways as to how the assessment was done, and I was left a little bit, because I had a list of things that I was looking for, and especially from the complainant as to what they had proposed in their literature and et cetera. And I was writing notes, didn't say anything, didn't bring this up. Why did they mention this? Just going through it. So in the long run, when it is public, and it will be in the long run. We just didn't feel that, even though they were saying that they felt that it wasn't equitable and that it was overstated, that the assessment was way too high. We confirmed the assessment based on the way that it was calculated, and the complainant, they have to first demonstrate that they have a case. It's called prima facie. They didn't really succeed in convincing any of the three of us. We independently all came to the same conclusion that they didn't present a strong enough case for us to consider it. And I was prepared before it started to think that, well, we might have to discuss this a little bit. Is it too high? Are they asking too low? But their calculations just didn't fit, which was unfortunate, because I felt a little disappointed in my first one that we didn't really get into it. It wasn't like the case studies that we had when we were training. So that's, but it was my first. 11 years, finally paid off. All that training you sent me for, finally got it put to use.
Well, thank you. And if one comes up in the future, now you have this history.
Yep.
Yeah. Put that on your resume. Okay, well, thank you, Councilor Berry. Yeah, I had some positive, I too heard the story of the little houses in Foxview. I don't know where it came from, but I did have a couple of phone calls about something on a Facebook post about bottle drives, and where somebody can try to find somebody to come pick up the bottles and help support a nonprofit. There was a remark made by the former manager of the Vipers hockey team, said that the Vipers used to do that, but the town shut them down. So I had a couple calls about that, why we shut the Vipers and the Can-Am Hockey League down. So I told them, right up front, we told them they couldn't put their sign on center ice, they had to move it 2 feet away, and I guess that justified shutting down the league. So both calls were like, are you real? I said, yeah, that's why. They didn't go any further. That's what they told us. They closed the league down because they couldn't have the center ice spot. We asked them to move their logo 2 feet. So it was kind of bad when, throw that out at the fact that we shut down a league. Anyway, what are you going to do? People are going to say what they're going to say. So, moving on, let's go to Director Saskew. What do you got for highlights?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an exciting staffing update. Megan Rawawa started today filling the vacant utilities clerk position, so we're happy to have her on board and one step closer to a full complement of staff for my office. With the Canada Post strike, we are planning a social media campaign to remind citizens that we do have paperless notification options. Today I had a meeting with the seed manager and community engagement coordinator to set up a plan to allow for easier access to paperless signups. Lane did an excellent job putting together a one-stop shop for both residential and businesses, so it's 2 clicks on our website, 2 different buttons to click. These forms are available and they are highlighted on our news page. So we already have had 1 residential form submitted even before we've even talked about it. So Lane put it live so that I could go and click through and make sure it seemed good. And we had someone submit. So that's actually a really good sign showing that that's something that people are looking for. So no more printing out forms, having to actually physically sign them. You can do it on a web browser on your phone. The plan is to advertise these new forms in the coming week, and all forms received prior to November 30th will be implemented prior to our December utility run. We do have a reminder to ratepayers that it is your responsibility to ensure your invoices are paid on time, even amid Canada Post strike. So if you prefer to continue and receive a paper statement, you're gonna have to visit us on the second floor at the town admin office to receive that paper statement. So if the strike is still happening, our utilities run is the first week of December. So if the strike is still occurring during that time period, we will have some information for members that they can come and pick up their paperless copy or their paper copy from our office. So those are the people that are getting charged the $2.50. Likely we'll print them and have them available for pickup if it comes to that. So hopefully maybe we don't have to do that. In the meantime, anyone that's wishing to sign up for paperless, please do. We're also encouraging anyone receiving a paper check to pick up directly from our office. So we have checks that were already in process of check run. So my new accounts payable, Jaskaran, went through and personally called several vendors and staff or other people that were receiving checks to get them signed up for EFT. So we, instead of printing the checks, we are doing a second EFT run. And then for checks that are for local businesses that would prefer not to go EFT, we have phoned them personally to pick up their checks. So we're making sure, doing our best to make sure payments don't get lost. And then in relation to the small business declaration, the declarations are due this year for November 30th, 2024 is the declaration date, saying that you have less than 50 employees, full-time equivalent, and that's for use for the 2025 taxation. These must be submitted every year by all qualifying small businesses. Today, we also sat down and set up an online form and declaration on our website. So now, once again, with small business forms, there is a spot on our website that you can fill this out and make the necessary declarations with your name and a phone number without having to physically print out the paper and submit it to us in person. So another step to make things easier for people, especially if somebody is away from the province or country right now and doesn't have the ability to mail it in, so to say. So we're excited to have this as an option available this year. I'm also scheduled to do a talk of the town on December 5th to be run in mid-December to talk about the small business declaration as well. So we've done media campaigns, we've done paper, like put it in the newspaper. Our plan is still to have it as the front page of the Scoop this next month. So for people that are paperless, they'll have it attached in their email. For people that are still getting paper copies, it will likely be either mailed or available for pickup at our office.
But the cutoff is November 30th.
Yes, so that's if you want to sign up for, the cutoff for the small business declaration is as of November 30th, I have less than 50 employees. We have to pick a specific date and time. So if someone has 51 employees up till September and then all of a sudden has 49 as of November 30th, that's the declaration date. If people are well over, then that's when I would have to investigate and kind of ask for some payroll records.
Okay, so but people can still sign up before January 1.
Yes. Yeah, so you have until December 31st to submit your annual small business declaration. So that's why we're doing the hard-hitting news, talk of the town in December. So that's due before January 1. Other highlights, to date, we've spent $122,000 on the building move. As promised, these costs have been kept track in a separate project card, and we will give the town the council a full update once it's available. As Councillor Curtis alluded, it was the talk of the town as the building drove down the road yesterday. I can say that it has safely made it to the landfill, and in the coming days, it will be moved on to its new pony wall that was constructed. So that is my update on that. Museum DS sessioning has been in progress. Once again, as promised, these revenues and costs have been kept separate from general revenue in a separate project card as well. So council will be updated with these final figures and have a final say in where the funds get closed to. So obviously there's certain requirements into what we have to do with those funds. I have also received the ARO report from our consultant, John, and once again, we had talked about this already today, that I will be trying to have these done so that for interim audit, it can get audited. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. We
question.
Oh, sorry.
One question. I appreciate the online forms. I think the easier it is. And this may be happening already, but I'm just wondering, with our forms, the way they're set up, or with any of the forms we're providing, when somebody does do an online form, does it generate for them like a confirmation email or confirmation number? And the only reason I ask that is I've just seen through my work through some of the federal departments, they're going away from where you send a form in that you've saved, and then at least you could always check your sent file. So a lot of these things are going to online forms, and then there's no confirmation number. So I was just wondering if there is one, or if it's something we could look to see if it's possible.
Yes, there is a confirmation email sent saying thank you.
Thank you.
I haven't even had a chance to test this because Elaine was telling me that we had got one before the end of the day, so then I quickly was briefing my staff because
I greatly appreciate that, though, because that's a way that we can then turn around and say to people, if someone comes back later and says, because I mean, in this world of this online portal, there's a lot of computer glitch, but then you can't prove that computer glitch, right? Versus the send. So if it's something that says, hey, you'll be getting an email, that puts the onus back on them. If you didn't receive a confirmation email, and maybe that's even something that can be, if it
There
doesn't
is
say it, but on the form, yeah, that's
a
awesome.
disclaimer saying, like, if you don't receive your utility bill within 45 days of sending this, like,
Yeah.
please call our office. Like, it's still your responsibility to ensure that you're receiving. So if there was an error in some sort,
Yeah,
then it's still on, the onus is still on the ratepayer
that's
to
perfect.
know that they should have received a bill.
Yeah, and if we can do that with any of our forms, even if it's declarations or different things, if there is a possible way at any time to have it say on the form, you'll receive an email and that be there, that just takes that away from us as being our problem.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that that's listed saying, like, if you don't receive a confirmation email, please call our office.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Director Saskew on our update or highlights? Go ahead.
I think the accessibility of the online small business declaration is great. I appreciate that. Making it easy for people to do the right thing is always a good thing.
Thank you. Okay, CAO Ling.
After Director Saskia, this is going to seem fairly minuscule, but just a couple highlights. I've spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks in various meetings, and some around economic development. Another meeting with OCL after the facility tours, prepping for the steering committee. And I took part in the Alberta Health Town Hall with Minister Lagrange here this morning. It was very informative.
Thank you very much. So, FNMI tomorrow at Ale Horton, starts at 5. And at 7:05, there will be a presentation at the Legions for those who can make it. And, we got the parade coming up on November the 29th. And then we got a couple of commitments with the food bank coming up too, of the 6th and the 13th. So, is there any other questions or any other business of council? We do have one closed session item, so I would take a motion to go into closed session. Councilor Lemko makes the motion. All those in favor? And that's at 5:33, Leslie. So would you guys like a 5-minute